You walk into a room, and within 30 seconds, you've already noticed who seems tense, who's pretending to be fine, what the energy feels like, and whether that smile across the table was real or rehearsed. Nobody told you to do this. You weren't trying to. Your brain just did it, automatically, quietly, without asking your permission. And while everyone else is just living the moment, you're simultaneously in it and observing it from 3 feet above your own head. If that sounds familiar, welcome. You are what some people might casually call too aware. And today we're going to talk about what that actually means, why your brain works this way, and why what feels like a burden is actually something far more extraordinary than you've been told. Let's start with what's really going on. Being too aware isn't a personality quirk or a bad habit you picked up somewhere. It's a neurological reality. Some people are born with what researchers call higher sensory processing sensitivity, a term coined by psychologist Dr. Elaine Aron in her research on what she called the highly sensitive person. The brains of these individuals process information more deeply, more thoroughly, and more completely than average. Every stimulus gets a longer look. Every interaction gets a deeper read. Every moment gets more layers of interpretation than most people even know are possible. Think of it like this. Most brains receive information the way a standard camera does. It captures the image, stores it, moves on. Your brain is running a full analysis. Contrast, depth, shadow, background, lighting, emotional subtext. It's doing in milliseconds what takes most people hours, if even that. And it's exhausting. Not because you're doing something wrong, but because the world wasn't exactly designed for a brain that notices everything. Here's where it gets really interesting, though. This depth of awareness isn't random. It's connected to something called the default mode network, the part of your brain that's active when you're reflecting, self-analyzing, imagining other people's perspectives. In people who are highly aware, this network is essentially overactive. It doesn't switch off cleanly. While other people's brains rest, yours is still running simulations, replaying conversations, anticipating outcomes, noticing patterns that haven't fully formed yet. This is why you often know things before you can explain how you know them. Why you felt a shift in a friendship weeks before it ended, why you could tell something was off in a meeting even when everything looked fine on the surface. You weren't guessing, you were reading real signals, micro-expressions, tone, body language, energy that most people simply don't register. But here's the complicated part. Being that aware comes with a shadow side that nobody prepares you for. When you notice everything, you also feel everything. Other people's pain lands differently on you. Other people's moods can physically change how you feel in a room. And when something hurts you, it doesn't just sting, it reverberates, because your brain doesn't just process the surface, it goes all the way down. And the world will tell you that's too much, that you're oversensitive, that you need to not take things so personally, that you need to thicken your skin, turn down the volume, stop overthinking. But what if the volume isn't the problem? What if the world just doesn't know what to do with someone who's actually paying full attention? Kazimir Dabrowski spent decades studying intensely aware individuals, artists, thinkers, deeply feeling people, and found that their emotional and sensory intensity wasn't a dysfunction. He called it overexcitability, and he believed it was a hallmark of people with the greatest capacity for growth, empathy, and moral depth. In other words, the very thing that makes you feel like too much is the same thing that makes you profoundly human. Being too aware means you are someone who cannot be entirely fooled, who reads between the lines because there's always something written there, who feels the weight of a room because weight is real, and most people have just learned to ignore it. That is not weakness dressed up as sensitivity. That is a kind of intelligence, emotional, social, intuitive, that science is only beginning to fully understand and respect. So what do you do with all of this? You stop trying to turn it off. You start learning how to work with it instead of against it. You create the space you need to process, to recover, to breathe between interactions. You stop apologizing for noticing what others miss, and you let yourself be exactly as deep as you actually are, not as shallow as the world sometimes demands. You are not too much. You are precisely calibrated for a level of living that most people never access. If you've spent your whole life feeling like your awareness is a flaw, I hope this shifts something for you today. Drop a comment below and tell me one thing you've always noticed that others seem to miss. I genuinely want to know. And if this channel is starting to feel like something your brain needed, subscribe.